Excellent. Hello, everyone. Great to see so many people here. I would like to give you a little bit of an overview of Rocket Pharmaceuticals and what we do. And the reason you see a beautiful sky is we're all about patients being our North Star. But let me just click away here, make sure I'm going the right direction. Employed by Rocket, all our fund disclosures. So I figured the first slide I'm going to do is this. Everyone's talking about the global changes. What does this mean for us? What does this mean for our sector? So I wanted to say what's really interesting, especially coming from the US, and many of you in the EU, I've heard your perspective as well. Yes, there are changes that are going on with the FDA, with the administration, with the tariffs, with all of these global changes that sometimes feels like you're constantly keeping up with the news and you're constantly falling behind. What is one thing that stays true during this change is simple. Cell and gene therapy drugs are not a nice to have. They are a must. They are a must, and global development and global drug development and scientific innovation cannot be an afterthought. So my call to action is really simple. Let's keep doing what we're good at doing because patients need it and the world needs it. And during the time of turbulence, right, this sector has seen a lot of challenges. And what I've seen is the resilience, the commitment to innovation. But I think commitment to innovation, my recommendation is slightly different now, is this. You have to put words into actions. So the 3 recommendations I would offer is commit to your scientific innovations, because these patients are looking for this one-time potentially curative therapies. They don't have any of the treatment options in many of the diseases we work on. So straight to that. How do you do that? Well, I'd love to say I have 6 disclosed pipeline, and I have more programs in R&D and research that are not disclosed, but you have to be good financial stewards. So knowing what is going to be highly impactful, where you can have wins, success, and gain credibility is going to be really important. So number 2, financial stewardship during this hardship is probably the best thing you could do. One of the investors, actually many of the investors have this sentiment, but one of the investors says those that survive now will absolutely thrive and become the leaders to change how we do cell and gene therapy and how we do genetic medicines for the future. And how do we do that? Well, together. It's all about relationship. So I love the fact that so many people are here in person despite the financial challenges that many of your companies face, because it's about engaging each other, learning from each other, and engaging key stakeholders, whether it's regulatory, payers, patients. Keep doing what that is all about, because when you form a trust and relationship, you can raise more money, you can get more scientific innovation, and you can have the fuel that makes a difference in the world. So don't give up hope. That's my one message. If nothing else you listen to, I will say that. So Rocket Pharmaceuticals, what do we do? And what's our hope? And what's our mission? Our vision and mission is simple: seeking gene therapy cures. We want to develop first, best, and or only in class therapies for devastating diseases that have no treatment options. And we're fortunate to do that, focusing on rare diseases. We went through rare diseases. Why? Because unfortunately, there are 400 million people impacted by rare diseases. I think NIH said there are 8,000 rare diseases that are out there. Many of them do not have treatment options. Only 5 to 6% of the rare diseases out there still have therapies. Mind you, the Regulation for Orphan Drug Act went into effect in 1983. It's been a while. We made progress, but there's a huge iceberg of unmet medical need that we can go after. And the other component that's really passion for me and a lot of the team members at Rocket are, for us, kids, the vulnerable population is not an afterthought. They're impacted by these diseases, and unfortunately, 3 out of 10 kids don't even make it to their 5th birthday. So this is real, this is impactful. And so we focus on having a therapy that's available to these patients because they need it, and it's not a nice to have. That's what we're pursuing. Rocket, we're a bunch of drug developers, so we get to work with amazing experts and amazing platforms. We have 2 platforms we work with. We're platform agnostic. It's in vivo platform, which is our AAV9 and R74 for cardiac diseases. And then we have ex vivo LNT for our blood disorders, non-oncolytic blood disorders like Fanconi anemia, like Kresladi, and like PKD. So our total pipeline is divided into 2 therapeutic areas at this point. We do have a 3rd therapeutic area that is in discovery, currently just being slow played until we can have some financial means to just move those forwards as well. And what has helped us have an efficient drug development and why Rocket's approaching its 10 years and saying, hey, we might have 2 drugs approved at our 10-year Rocket anniversary since discovery, is we believe in using transparent dialogues with patients, with treating physicians, every step of the way with health authority. We've been able to work on therapies that are meaningful and have all the bells and whistles of RMAT and PRIME designations. You heard from our keynote speaker, Emma, this morning. Engaging health authority often and early is great because that can accelerate drug development. When you talk about patients that pass away by the age of 5, you don't have 15 years that it normally takes for drug development to succeed. You really need to work quicker. So I'm going to talk about the cardiovascular pipeline. Why? Because gene therapy has been used for many diseases. Cardiology and cardiac diseases were one of those things that people said, hey, we don't know if gene therapy will work in this space, right? What's the uptake? Is it going to be safe enough? How are you going to dose adults, 90, 80 kilogram adults, with gene therapy in a safe way that you can actually see the benefit risk that's meaningful? We worked on Danon disease. We started this therapy a while ago. It has 15 to 30,000 patients impacted in the US and EU. We were able to design a very efficient phase 1 dose escalation study, optimize our safety profile, and then move very quickly with EMA and FDA agreement to a phase 2 pivotal study. Why? Because the market opportunity is significant. Unfortunately, these kids, the boys, impacted either need a transplant or unfortunately pass away by the age of 19 or 20. Females, quote unquote, live longer. What is the definition of longer? Well, unfortunately, they pass away in their mid-30s. So that's not that much longer. So the unmet medical need is really real. It is a disease that we're spending a lot of time and resources on. And what we've seen is the data is beautiful. When gene therapy works, it works, right? You could see difference from these patients. If you see the ages, right? They're in their 20s. They're alive. They're living a normal life, which is brilliant, right? Without transplant. They have changed all of the biomarkers, cardiovascular, NYHA classification. If you ask any cardiologist, they'll say, oh, you can never go from NYHA 3 to 2 or 2 to 1, right? That doesn't happen, meaning you cannot become asymptomatic when you have a disease progression. Well, we've seen all of our patients become asymptomatic. And this data is beautiful, and it has been published in the New England Journal of Medicine. But there's just different ways to show how a patient that would not have gene therapy, natural history, and what the importance looks like, versus a patient that did improve. And Danon disease is a disease of thick hearts, meaning they have the biggest heart walls. So our goal is to decrease the LVMI in order to have better blood flow and et cetera. So this is some of the data. I won't go into the details, but you're welcome to look at the New England Journal publication, and these slides will become available. So drug development efficiencies, what can we do? We realized our phase 1 learnings. We were able to quickly convert it to pivotal phase 2 study. In collaboration with FDA and EMA, we had dialogues that one clinical study in 12 patients followed by 12 months could lead to both Europe, US, and MHRA approval, right? A global study of N of 12. That's amazing. Now, what is great about that? In the US, while it's an accelerated approval pathway that Dr. Peter Marks and individuals at FDA have been championing, and Dr. Nicole Verdon is very involved with this program, the beauty is they said, hey, you don't have to do a third study after approval. Just follow the same patients out to 5 years and let's see. And then you can convert the same study data from an accelerated approval to a full approval. Now, that to me is efficient drug development, and those are the learnings we've tried to apply to our other programs. Our other program is PKP2. This program is in the clinic currently in the US. The Rocket strategy always start in the US phase 1 and then globally for phase 2, and hopefully it's a pivotal study. This disease is kind of interesting because it's cardiomyopathy. It causes, unfortunately, cardiac sudden death at times for patients. The diagnosis for patients range from teens to athletes to later in life. But what happens, unfortunately, is these patients have ICD firings, and when they have that, yes, quote unquote, they're alive, but every time they have a firing, they feel like they're passing away and they're dying every single time. And they're not able to hold a job or have a quality of life. So the unmet medical need is very real. And for these patients, it is estimated, we estimate that there are about 50,000 patients in US and Europe. Other companies and others have said it's up to 125,000 patients that are impacted by PKP2, and that could be treated by gene therapy. What we've done is we've worked with experts around the world, in this case in New York and California and other places, to figure out the preclinical models, learnings from Danon, in order to get to the clinic as quickly as possible. We were able to open our IND up last year, and these are some data, but what I can tell you is what we saw in the knockout mouse model has translated to the clinic. Conceptually, we believe for Danon, it did from knockout mouse to non-human primates to human, we saw a correlation. Those correlations are being applied here, and why am I highlighting that? Because that helped us determine the dose. Our thinking is really simple. It is every patient, no matter what study they're on, whether in phase 1 or phase 3, every person should have a chance of this curative option. One day, maybe redosing will be feasible, but if it's not feasible, we want to make sure it's not just about safety and dose escalation. So based on our learnings from Danon, we were able to apply a dose, 8E13, which we think will be clinically meaningful for PKP2 patients. And the discussions we have of genetic testing and cardiology and finding cardiologists and center of excellence from Danon, we will apply to PKP2. And we're really excited because I think in second quarter of this year, we'll have some update on the phase 1 study. Our goal is to apply the learnings from Danon to not just PKP2, but also BAC3. BAC3 was acquired through an acquisition of Renovacor, which was a company financially in a little bit of strain, but they had amazing talent and amazing science and a BAC3 program. We acquired them. We're taking this to the IND first half of this year, and it is going to become a platform of cardiovascular gene therapy. So what are the next steps in this? Well, getting an IND cleared, but also working with cardiologists, working with GDLs, getting genetic testing, getting early diagnosis, and making sure that we have our patients that are North Star are at the center of everything we do, whether it's preclinical asset to commercialization asset. Now, I have these pictures here. This is what Rocket's known for. We started a Light Up for Rare campaign 8-ish years ago, and we're really excited that it gives hope. So on the rarest day of the year, February 29th, which happens every few years, February 28th is when we celebrate it sometimes, we light up all the buildings and monuments around the world. So last year we were able to partner with Eudris, Nord, Italian patient advocacy groups, and people in UK and Spain, and we had 120 monuments light up for rare. And why is that important? You might say, oh, these are beautiful colors, but why? Well, in rare diseases, what we found is patients feel alone. There are not enough treatments, there are not enough support system. So that one day, what we've discovered when we did this 8 years ago for Empire State Building, they looked up at the sky and they said, hey, somebody cares. People are working on rare diseases. People are working on diseases that are life-threatening and not as an afterthought, but as a promise of better future. So we think gene therapies could start in rare disease. It could apply to bigger diseases if we all work together and collaborate together to make this happen. So thank you.